So I'm gonna make a short skinning video. Like I've been saying, if you kill something in Guilford or Rockingham, both, and of course there's other counties, but those two apply to me more than any other, so that's the ones I want to talk about more. You need to learn how to skin your deer head out. Just like we've been dealing with this for years, as far as out-of-state deer. You couldn't bring the whole deer head back, so I had to quit doing skulls from out of state years ago. You could bring your antlers back in your cape, and that's it. So, I kind of showed a picture earlier this week, just kind of how the incision is. So I was saying, wherever you cut that neck off, the meat, that's where you got to start your incision. This one here is kind of short. A lot of people cut them off about right here where it's still got that much neck meat, so the incision will start way back there. But when it's like this, what I'll do, make a straight incision that gets me past wherever that neck meat is. So of course, like I say, this one's gonna be short. You can either come up to about right there and branch off to the sides. They call that a T. I like to do a Y. So I'll get about where I'm at now, and branch off to each side. So you got a Y. Then start loosening your skin. It can be tricky around the burrs. Some people like to use a screwdriver to help it along. Depending on the shape of the burr, sometimes they can be kind of tricky. Sometimes it's hard to get the skin loose around that burr. But just keep doing that and it'll keep loosening up. So try to get it as close to that burr as possible. A lot of times you'll have a few little stray hairs here and there that you don't get, but and you see how I'm cutting just kind of back towards the burr as I go. Hopefully you can see it. I didn't have nobody to video this one. Wanted to try to get video. So the ears, you can get it off that skull and still have the butt attached. That's better than cutting it off way up on the butt. And you'll feel that cartilage that comes out of the ear and where it attaches to the skull. Just cut down that. Just keep loosening. It's just like skinning the rest of the deer. You see, I've already got this ear loose. But until you do it once or twice, just take your time and try not to cut any holes. Definitely important with these early bow season deer. It's extremely short hair. Whatever damage you got, it's a little harder to fix than a gun season deer. So you see, I've already got that one loose. Once you get used to doing this, it's no different than skinning the rest of the deer. I can usually skin these in 5 minutes, typically. So Once you do a few, you get faster and faster. I'm trying to be somewhat slow so that you can see what I'm doing. And so, like I was saying, this applies for your out-of-state deer. If you're going hunting out of state, you may be doing it on your own, don't have a guide. It's good to learn this. But I think they're going to keep putting restrictions on the different counties in North Carolina, so this is going to apply to probably more and more each year. So it'll be good to learn this. All right, so we're getting down to the eyes. Usually what I do is I stick my finger through, and that's what keeps me from cutting holes, because I know I'm going to cut my finger. But I kind of feel on the inside where I'm at. But the same thing with pretty much anything I'm doing, I'm cutting towards the skull. I'm not so much turning it on its side. And you don't have to use a scalpel, just a sharp knife. I'm used to using a scalpel for pretty much everything. I skin a whole deer with a scalpel. So it's just what I like using. But just keep loosening it down. Alright, so we're at the front of the eye. I'm still kind of cutting in towards the skull. Once you get it loose at the front of that eye orbit, you know that you got your tear duct. Alright, I'll kind of stick my finger in there again. I'm cutting, and it's a recessed place. Take a look at a deer skull, and you'll see how that tear duct comes in front of that eye. So make sure you're cutting down in there. A lot of times you'll end up with a little tiny hole back there at that tear duct. That's no problem. When we end up tucking the tear duct, it's not going to hurt a thing. But just try not to cut a big hole there. So see, there's the eye, tear duct, it's all loose. Do it again on this side. Alright, so again, got the eye loose, we're at the tear duct. Make sure you're cutting down into that depression to loosen it. And like I was saying with the burrs, people like to use a screwdriver. This would be a good point. Kind of sit here and move the screwdriver around, it might loosen it off, and maybe you'll be less likely to cut a hole. So see, we're past both eyes. Alright. So as soon as you get the eyes loose, you're at the back of the mouth. You see how it's coming loose. Same thing. I'm kind of pulling pressure with my other hand, and I'm cutting in towards the skull. And just loosening the skin off. Flip it around so you can see this side of the mouth. Alright, so see, we're coming off. Cut it off and leave that lip skin on it. Then you're less likely to be cutting holes. But the whole way, cut in towards the bone. That's what works for me anyway. It's going to dull it up quicker, but it's getting it done. Alright, so now we're at the nose. You got a lot of cartilage that comes back. Look at how a skull is shaped. Cut it off to where you're leaving a good bit of that cartilage on there. That's something we'll trim off later. If you cut it on the back like that, you're less likely to have a hole. So that's probably the easiest way to tell you. But if you cut a little hole, no problem. You know, it's just something we're going to have to deal with. People are going to have to learn how to do this to keep themselves out of trouble. So, all right. So we've got the last little bit of this bottom jaw. Same thing, kind of cut inward towards the bone and pull with your other fingers. Loosens off, and there we go. So see, you got a couple stray hairs here and there sometimes, but you know, try to get as close as you can. Possibly use a screwdriver till you get used to it. The other thing I'll mention before I stop this video is all the time people say, I brought you the whole skin. Well, it never fails. A lot of times they're missing a brisket. This one here is perfect. So you got your front legs. A lot of the modern forms are using more of this brisket. So we need more of it. A lot of people are bad about gutting a deer and cutting right through it. If it's in the middle, a lot of times we can sew it without much problem, but you're better off if you can stay back there. You ought to better loosen that skin and bring it down and not have to split that. You know, if it's whole, it makes it better in the long run if we're not having to sew something like that. So this one you can't see the point in the hair quite as defined as some of them, but that's the center of the chest there, the inside of that leg. We need all of that for a mount.